Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast where we don't just talk about healing or manifestation, we live it, embody it, and breathe it. Yeah. And today's episode might feel like a shake up because I want to tell you something most people won't, that you are not in control, not in the way you think you are. And that's not a limitation, that's where your true creative power begins. Okay. So I want to start with this illusion of control that all of us have, and I want you to think of an example of how culturally and generally, when we where we grow up, our parents, friends, everyone around us and environment, we've kind of, most of us rather, have grown up with people telling us that if we do more, right, if we work harder, if we put in more effort, if we spend more time, right, or whatever it is, if we do more, then the result will be greater. Yeah. If you work harder, you get more money, right? Haven't you heard that? Even with education or like wherever you are, it's more like if you spend so much time studying, then the reward will be something greater, isn't it? Yeah. So we are constantly um focusing on putting in more energy in a certain way, and we think that that will lead to something, right? Now, that's what I want to actually decipher here today in the call. Okay, let's just start with our brain. Okay, most people don't realize this, that we only use 4 to, well, they say like 10% of our conscious brain, but within that we kind of use, I think, 4%, okay, in our day-to-day functioning. Okay, and even that is doing a lot of mental gymnastics. Okay, overthinking, controlling, planning, worrying, right? Because with this notion of working hard, thinking more, we think that we'll probably get better results, right? So here's the wild part. Okay, if we are only doing that 4 to 10%, that's where we are actually using our brain, then that 99% of the results that we are actually thinking about, right, 99% of the results in our life is actually not coming from that 4%, right? When we are trying to fix our mindset, or we are thinking positively, or we are visualizing harder, right, you're still working with that tiniest sliver of your true power, right? Meanwhile, the other 95% of your brain, that's the subconscious, and that's where your beliefs, your fears, your identity, and your trauma live. It's like trying to steer a huge ship, okay, by moving the steering wheel 1 inch when the anchor is still dropped underwater. Yeah. You're not failing, you're just trying to create change from the surface. Yeah. So we think that by working harder or by doing some, even thinking harder, we'll get where we want to get. But the truth is that 4% of your brain that you're using, it's only 4%, right? The rest of it, the 95-96%, is a subconscious. And our focus should be there rather than on our conscious mind. Whereas we think, like, if in our conscious mind we think a certain way, we'll get what we want. Instead of focus, and the subconscious mind is what, that's where that state, that we go into when we meditate, right? When we are sleeping, right, when say there is deep meditative, even hypnosis, right, or in a regression state. So those are the waves, the brain waves change, and that's where we hit the subconscious. Okay, whatever we are putting in there is actually what's showing up in your world. So let me talk a little bit about what the subconscious really is. Okay, it's not just some hidden mental layer, it's everything you've ever absorbed, right? Your childhood memories, your wounds from your inner child, repeating karmic stories, even from past lives, your beliefs inherited from your parents, even your collective programming that I keep talking about, your environment, people, friends, family, everything, and even what your body has felt but couldn't process. So when you were a little child and you saw a violent fight in front of you, you weren't doing anything, but you observed it, you saw it, you witnessed it, and that anger, that trauma is now in your body, stored in your body, right? And what happens when it gets stored in a body? It turns into an emotion, right? And it gets frozen in our body. And of course, that later on creates disease, right? Diseases. So that's the 95%, okay? And it's running on autopilot, right? That's the part, the subconscious that we hit when we are healing. So when we are healing, when we are working with you, when we are changing your thought forms, what we are actually doing is, because see, when you're affirming, I'll give you an example, okay? For example, you affirm, I am rich, okay? Now you're saying it consciously, and you say it and you feel it feels very alien to you, okay? And you keep saying it, and then to the extent that you get so aggravated, you get so angry that you stop doing it. Haven't you seen, you start affirmation and then you stop it, you start visualizing and then you stop it? Yeah, that's because your subconscious, your body, your nervous system cannot recognize what you're saying, because your subconscious thinks that money is equal to brokenness, right? That's what you grew up with. Suppose in your family, every time anybody got money, or in your family there's a story that somebody got money and then there was a separation. So your father got a great job, or he moved cities, and he got like a great paycheck, and then your parents divorced, right? You as a child now think that money is equal to broken families, okay? So that's your connection to money, and now you keep saying, I am rich, or you say that I am in a loving relationship, or I am attracting a loving relationship. Your subconscious has a different connection between money and relationships. So for you to consciously make an effort, it'll take time. Like the other day I was talking to someone, and they said that if it's almost like you are using a pencil to say break a door, imagine the time it'll take to break that door with that pencil, right? Maybe you'll have to chisel for, I don't know, even know how many years or time or whatever. But obviously if you use a hammer, it might take the time, the less time. And then of course if you use a big, I don't know, crane, it might just break right away, right? So that's what the crane is, basically your subconscious working on your subconscious. You'll see instant changes then, right? Conscious will take time, right? So every decision, every reaction, every pattern you can't seem to break is coming from your subconscious, right? Your subconscious doesn't care about what you want, right? It cares again about what feels safe. So for a child who has seen that a lot of money breaks relationship, now even though it's a traumatic thing, right? Traumatic association, but for them a broken relationship is what keeps them safe. You get it? Because at that time, if that child was not with the mother, the child would not survive, right? So safety comes from a broken relationship. You see how contorted that can be, but that's their safe definition. So now when they're looking for a beautiful relationship, healthy relationship, where the person is earning and you're also thriving with your partner, that doesn't feel familiar to the body, that doesn't feel safe, because that's not what safe meant to them as a child, or whenever that subconscious imbibe that lesson. Yeah. So even if safe means stuck, even if safe means sabotaging, even if safe means painful, they will choose that definition of safety rather than the healthier version, or whatever you know, they are now consciously as an adult choosing. You get it? You get how mixed up that can be in terms of definitions of safety? So, if love once meant abandonment or money once meant rejection, right? Your subconscious will now reject both, even while your conscious mind is scripting affirmations. You get it? So your subconscious keeps on rejecting that because for them, the definition of love, the definition of money is different. Money is rejection, love is abandonment. So that is why affirming, visualizing, scripting on their own, they don't always work. Like I said, it may take a lot of time, right? Based on what your subconscious is. Because they're only tapping into the conscious layer. Real change starts when you reach the emotional body, the energetic field, and the nervous system. Because that's where the subconscious actually listens. Yeah. And now here's what, where it really gets beautiful, because the subconscious doesn't rewire from logic. Okay. Now, of course, all of you must be wondering, if this is what happens, if the subconscious is what we need to change, then, how do we do it, right? But again, logic is not what will heal or what will rewire your subconscious. It gets rewired through your presence, through feeling, through the now. Yeah. You can't shift the past by reliving it over and over. Okay? You shift it by choosing something different right now. So the moment you become present in your breath, in your body, in your truth, you create a new reality. And something fascinating happens when you do that. Okay. Now, I know there's a lot of information here, guys, but I really want you all to understand this, in a very simple and easy way. I mean, I'm trying to do it as easily and as flowy as it gets, so that you are able to understand with a lot of facts as well, right? So let's talk about science and energy now. Okay. So there is a connection between our brain waves, heart coherence, science, and receiving. So when you're stressed and anxious or trying to control everything, okay, your brain stays in high beta wave state. Okay. It's reactive, panicked, and disconnected. Okay. But the moment you drop into trust, into faith, into allowing, your brain shifts into alpha or theta waves. And these are the frequencies where healing happens, intuition comes online, creativity flows, and your body enters receiving mode. And not just that, your heart and your brain begin to sync. They move into what science calls coherence. And when that coherence happens, your nervous system softens, your field expands, and energetically you become magnetic. Yeah. And that's how you actually start attracting all the things that you want. You're no longer chasing, you're attracting. Because your whole body is now a yes to life, if you put it that way. So, do you see how manifestation doesn't happen in the mind? It actually happens in coherence. When your body, your heart, your brain are in alignment and surrender. And that is why, healing and manifestation aren't separate. They are the same doorway. So you see how when I focus on healing, and when I say healing, it's not just energy healing, but it's also, meditating. It's also the mindset work that I do. It's also all the coaching that I do. All of that together actually lead to the rewiring of your subconscious and your nervous system. Yeah, because I probably will make another whole episode on your nervous system. But what I want to tell you is that our body is wired in a way, our body and brain, I think I spoke about it a little bit earlier as well, for survival, right? And a lot of our trauma based on that, not just our body, also goes into our subconscious. So today I've kind of expanded more on the subconscious. So the subconscious and the body, that's where we need to work on. Okay, that's where we need to clear out the traumas, we need to clear out the blocks. And when we do that, we start seeing results. So think of your body as this magnet, okay? But this magnet is right now um, covered in muck, covered in blocks, right? And that's your subconscious blocks, right? That could be from your past life, that could be from your childhood, all of that, right? That could be current scenarios that are causing traumas, right? All your tension, all your basically that 4% of your conscious mind that you're using can also be creating more negativity and blocks, by the way, right? So we actually want to get uh, we want to move a layer deeper from that conscious mind and go into your subconscious. And that's where the portal of healing, all sorts of self work comes in, where you kind of bypass that conscious mind, knowing that that conscious mind is actually limiting you. That conscious mind is your body reacting to survival. You if you are an animal, then your body is kind of making you go into the survival state so that you don't die. And for you to understand that that's the part your body plays, you don't have to believe every thought that's coming in your mind, because most of them are survival thoughts. And that's your also a lot of your 4% of conscious thoughts. Okay, the true expansion, the true desires that you want to fulfill, the true manifestations that you want in life will actually come when you reach your subconscious. That's where the changes need to happen. So you see how we've kind of grown up with this illusion of control that we can have on our life, whereas that 95%, right, of our subconscious, and by the way, within that subconscious is also we also get connected to the superconscious. That's where the divine comes in. That's where the magic of this universe comes in. So when we actually surrender and when we actually let go, right? And when I say let go, I mean let go of that control that we think we have on our future. Then we allow the magic of the universe to come in and play with that 95% of possibilities in our life and give us infinite possibilities. We open up a door to infinite possibilities then. So we think that we want a job that pays us XYZ in a certain company, right? But when we surrender and open up, the universe can probably make us a businessman, that earns XYZ, ZZZZZZ, that we couldn't even ever fathom. So unfathomable things will happen when we surrender and open up to our subconscious. So, what's my invitation today for all of you? It's to stop trying to control and start getting curious, right? Be in curiosity, ask questions. Instead of forcing your life into shape, start asking, what pattern is my subconscious still running? What does my inner child still believe about love, money, or safety? What am I trying to manifest, and how do I feel safe having it? And then, what would it take to soften, to trust, to allow? You can ask, what would it take for me to trust you, universe? What would it take for me to trust myself today, universe? Ask these questions. And then don't look for an answer. Just ask and let go. The universe will answer in its own way. Because when we run after answers, we are again trying to control, isn't it? So the more you try to control, the more resistance you create. But the more you surrender, let go, the more power you unlock. So that's where presence meets creation. That's where the subconscious begins to listen. And that's where your life begins to shift. Not because you forced it, but because you became the version of you who can finally receive it. Yeah. So today I want you to stop trying to figure it all out with that 4% of your conscious brain and start listening to the other 95%. Your body, your breath, your emotional truth, the silence in between your thoughts, that's where manifestation really begins. Yeah? So thank you for being here with me. If this episode stirred something in you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Yeah. Until next time, be wild, be soft, be magnetic. You are already everything you seek. Signing off, Anisha Dutt from Zarya Healings.